A lot of people expect that with the Denver Broncos currently sitting at 2-5, most likely 2-6 entering the trade deadline, assuming that we lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, many believe that the Denver Broncos are going to be sellers and ship off a lot of their more expensive veteran players at the trade deadline in an effort to recoup potential draft picks for those players. So, I'm a co-host on the Mile High Roundtable Network's 5280 podcast, which is the flagship podcast on the Mile High Roundtable Network. And we actually had Mike Kliss, senior Broncos NFL insider for 9 News, on the podcast. And Mike Kliss was very generous to give us some of his time. And Mike got asked by one of our co-hosts about the potential prospect of the Denver Broncos being sellers at trade deadline and trying to move on and recoup some resources from some of these expensive veteran players. And as it turns out, there may be a little bit of a snag in that plan that could prevent the Broncos from getting what they may imagine for some of these players. So let's go over here to a clip from the podcast and let's take a listen to what Mike Kliss had to say about the Denver Broncos possibly being sellers at the trade deadline.
I think they'll be, if they can, they're not going to be buyers. They will be sellers, if anything, during the trade deadline. One of the problems that I'm seeing here in this trade market so far, for instance, Justin Simmons' name came up in the trade reports. Um, Kevin Byard with Tennessee just went.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was a complicated deal. A safety came back, and it was a fifth and sixth round pick, but a fifth and sixth round pick for a quality safety like that, who's cheaper than Justin Simmons, that tells me you're not going to get a third round pick for Justin Simmons.
Right.
And so if you're going to only get a fourth round, or maybe even a fifth round back, is the best you're going to get back for Justin Simmons. Do you make that trade? I would say no. You're better off keeping Justin Simmons. Josie Jewell, a player like that, you want to clear space for Drew Sanders. Then again, Drew Sanders only played 4 snaps. His playing time regressed this
Mm-hmm.
last week against the Packers. Josie Jules went back up. He doesn't have the green dot anymore. That goes to Alex Singleton. Um, so for a while there, it looked like Josie was getting phased out, maybe just slightly. But now he's back in. He had a heck of a game against the Packers. And so we'll see how this plays out. Cortland Sutton, from a business standpoint, it makes sense to move Cortland Sutton because he's in the final year of his guarantee. And I'm not sure you want to pay him 15 million next year if you don't have to. Then again, he's coming on, and he's outperforming Jerry Judy, and Sean Payton seems to like Cortland Sutton more than he does Jerry Judy as far as the game plan. Maybe his Marcus Colston from 10 years back when Peyton was with the Saints. The big physical type receiver who's good in the red zone. So it just seems like some of these guys who seem to be guys you would maybe discard and move on to next year, and try to get some draft picks, because I think 25% of the problem with the Broncos, the state of the Broncos right now, is because they have lost 3 first round draft picks and 3 second round draft picks from the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trade. And it turned out those guys weren't miracle workers. They did not turn around the team like we all thought Russ would last year, like we all thought, at least I thought Sean Payton would this year. And that hasn't happened to this date.
So clearly there is a lot to unpack there from Mike Kliss. He mentioned 3 critical names there. Jesus Christ, sorry about that, guys. He mentioned 3 critical names there. And those 3 names, of course, were Justin Simmons, Josie Jewell, and Cortland Sutton. So with Justin Simmons, we talked about this last night on an episode of Broncos Syndicate, where it really seems like it's going to be hard for the Denver Broncos to really recoup a third-round pick in exchange for Justin Simmons after we saw the Tennessee Titans trade away one of the star safeties of the NFL in Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 5th and 6th round pick and a mid-caliber safety in Terrell Edmonds. if you're only going to get a bag of peanuts in exchange for a player like Justin Simmons, why would you bother trading him? And the same argument can definitely be had for someone like Courtland Sutton. Now, from a financial perspective, it absolutely makes sense to move on from Courtland Sutton, but from the other perspective of things, which is that he's actually been one of the more significant contributors at wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and also you're probably not going to net the draft capital that you expect for him. What's the point in moving on from Courtland Sutton just to move on from him? If you're not going to recoup significant resources for him, and he's clearly providing a significant role in this offense, there's no use in trading him. Now, Josey Jewell, I feel like, is a little bit more of an interesting conversation, because I do feel like there is a chance Josey Jewell could become expendable, but just like Mike Klis said, Josey Jewell's play count actually went up during that Packers game, and Drew Sanders' play count actually went down. So that maybe could go to show what the Denver Broncos think about Josey Jewell. Granted, he is in a contract year. That might also kind of neuter some of the draft capital that the Denver Broncos would potentially get in exchange for a Josey Jewell. So right now, it just sounds like the Denver Broncos are not set to get top-tier draft capital for really any of the resources that they have. If that's the case, then there's really no use at moving on, and that's basically what Mike Klis is alluding to here. So I gotta be honest, guys, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the trade deadline comes and goes and the Denver Broncos haven't made too many moves. Maybe they'll make one move. Maybe they'll trade away a Josey Jewell, maybe even a Jerry Jeudy. But right now, according to Mike Klis, the Denver Broncos are not going to get what they may be looking for in exchange for some of these players. And if that's the case, they're better suited just hanging on to those players until next year. All right, Broncos country, I'm curious about what you guys think about what Mike Klis had to say here. Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support, helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.